Okay, so Honey, I've Got a Job. We wanted a chance to show Ben's side of their relationship as well. So this, in a way, is both Flora and Ben's memory. And the media was quite important to us for this scene, as we used it to show the naturalistic side of their relationship rather than through the movement on stage. So we've got a video of like the tea, the making of dinner, which they would have done together, them going on walks together, and how all these things slowly deteriorate through time. And we showed this deterioration by showing clips of Ben on the phone, which is also seen on stage, as well as him constantly being buried in his work and generally ignoring her. Okay, so the to wake or not to wake scene. So originally we were going to have the lines split one by one, with young Ben on the video saying a line and then old Ben on stage saying a line. The idea behind this was that they were saying similar things but at different points through time, which emphasised the fact that Ben is almost a completely different person to what he was back then, and that Flora doesn't recognise him anymore. But it was so hard to get the timing right that we actually ended up scrapping it and decided to do it separately. So here's a video of young Ben. We wanted the media to be really surreal, as if it's a distorted memory of Ben, a distorted image or concept of him that she keeps in her head. So that's why the picture is so fragmented, and we also distorted the sound in order to make it seem more utterly surreal. The second part of To Wake or Not to Wake is to symbolise that she's dying, and is having to choose whether to leave the world she's in now or to continue fighting to survive. So we thought the best way to show that would to be to have Flora enter into her memory of Ben and have a conversation with him about what she should do. It's based on the idea that you remember things in a certain way or have this like ideal concept of a memory in your head, and it's also based on the idea of what people see when they're about to die, which we did a bit of research into. It's explored by David Kessler, in which he says it's either usually your mother or a loved one that gives comfort and happiness to the dying person in order to pass from this life, which I've discussed further in my research section. So here Flora's dying, and she creates this perfect vision of Ben and how he used to be in order to help her move on. Okay, so out-of-body experience. This is showing the time passing through the use of movement, focusing on Ben and Aries' torment at waiting for the news. We used a white background here, like we've done continuously throughout, whenever there's any hospital-related scenes. This is to obviously represent like the clinical whiteness of the hospital, but to also represent this idea that Flora is nearly in the light, is nearly leaving her physical self. But in order for it to not look plain, we had her last faded memories appear amongst the white. It was important to us that these were faded, as it represented the fact that she herself was fading and her memories are fading. And it was also to play on this idea that she's almost coming around in the hospital, as the walls are white around her, and she's, you know, she could come alive again in a way, like she could go back to that world. And the fact that she's lingering on that balance between life and death, and this is what she sees before finally leaving. This leads us onto the revelation, as it were to speak, as the media shows that she was actually pregnant, after making reference to it in previous media montages and on stage, and that's why she was going to Ben's office in the first place, to tell him the news. And that finally leads us on to the death scene. We did a lot of filming for this early on, where we actually gave the cast some props, such as ribbons and umbrellas, and asked them to film things they found interesting or relevant about lingering in that life and death moment. And we actually got some really interesting shots in which they used shadows effectively to portray that you're a shadow of yourself. And I actually really enjoyed their dark video shots with use of shadows. It kind of showed how Flora was moving from the darkness into another reality.